To record the presentation this morning because I'm going to go through this scanner, which is very similar to the TradeStation RadarScreen, and I'm going to go through the columns first, and then we'll go and look at charts this morning. So the first column that I have in the scanner window is called the volume divergence scanner, and you can see that we're getting a long divergence on gold on the daily chart. What does that mean? It means that with the ADX being above 50, we would be anticipating a magenta peak. That peak is actually coming in at the moment. It's registered at 6.8, and that just gives us the slope of the ADX when it's making that peak. Now, right now, it's still really basically flatlining. So we could see a retest of the low, which was actually at about 1223.6 before this retracement actually comes in. Okay, so that's just telling me that right now sellers are decreasing, and it's telling me, hey, you might have a potential long off of this divergence. Does everybody understand that? Now, that is building intra-bar, okay? So I would want to wait, if I was trading the 1440, I would want to wait until this completes to make sure that, in fact, this divergence holds. The next column is the ADX. Anytime the ADX is above 50, we have a strong trend and the potential to get a magenta peak. So in this case, on gold 3-minute, I know that the histogram bars are pink because it is above 50. Anytime it is above 70, then we are expecting it to be either overbought or oversold, depending on whether the line is red or blue. So if it was, let's say, 75, and the sell color was blue, it would be overbought. If it was 75 in red, it would be considered oversold. Now, anytime we get a magenta peak, or anytime the market is overbought or oversold, we would expect it to retrace back to the ATR stop. We do have a column here that tells us whether we have the ADX magenta peak. Okay, in this case, we've had a magenta peak on crude, and this tells us that it should be going up. Here's a magenta peak on the Dow, 45-minute. It should be going down, especially with that short divergence there. Any other ones that I see? No. So immediately I can say, okay, I've got 4 markets here that have magenta peaks that we could counter trend trade. Does everybody understand that? And those would be counter trend trades because they are going against the overall trend. The next column, and this is one that you don't normally see me have, is the RSI. The only thing that I'm looking at for the RSI is anything that is above 50 or below negative 50. This morning we don't actually have anything in that scenario. So I'll move on to the next column. The next column is the THD potential entry indicator. Now, this tells me that it has to touch the ATR or the congestion dot to appear in this column. Okay, because I have it update intra-bar. As it's touching, it will appear, okay? But once it moves away from the ATR or the congestion dot, it will disappear. Does everybody understand that? That's a good one to have an alert on because it doesn't necessarily stay there forever, okay? The next column that we have is the THD ATR divergence. Just as a side note, you see it appearing and disappearing on crude. That's because it's touching it or below it, and then it comes back and it disappears. That's exactly what I was talking about. Now the next column is the THD pullback divergence, okay? And this is measuring the pullback divergence at the ATR. So it doesn't necessarily have to touch the ATR. As long as it is going towards the ATR and there is divergence, it will appear in this column. Now we do have an input on that one that allows you to say, okay, what is close enough? In this case, I have it set to 1. If I change that to, say, 15, let's see if it changes anything, and actually it doesn't. It's all too far away from the ATR, or there is no divergence, one of the two. Does everybody understand that? Now you see on the DAX you're getting a long divergence. You're 8 ticks away from the ATR. Okay? All right, the next column that we have is the previous bar trend and the current bar trend. So in the case of gold, 45-minute chart, I know that the previous trend color was blue and the current trend color is white. That tells me that I'm close enough to the ATR I could actually take a trade at the ATR. Does everybody understand that? If you have any doubts, look to the next column and you can see that you are 1 tick from the ATR. Okay? So this one is measuring how far are we from the ATR. Okay? So if I wanted to say, do I have any trades close to an ATR? Just scan the ticks to ATR. You've got the NASDAQ within 6 ticks, the Dow's within 8, the S&P 500's within 6, the DAX is within 7, the Russell is within 10 ticks. Everybody understand that now? And the next column lets me know if we are in congestion. And the one thing that really should stand out at you today, we have a lot of congestion, okay? And that is because it's Fed Day, okay? Whenever it's Fed Day and they're not real sure about what the Fed's going to do, and today is considered like the double whammy day because not only are they doing the projections, but they're also doing the federal fund rate. So it's considered a double whammy today. And you can see that there is uncertainty in the market because you're getting a lot of congestion across all of the markets. Does everybody understand that? And typically on Fed Day, if they're not sure what the Feds are going to do, you're going to see the congestion on the higher time frames. Okay? Now, we have exactly the same scanner for the currency futures. The only thing different on the screen is the meter window that's over here on the right-hand side. You can see that on this meter window, I have all of the currency futures. So at a glance, I can see what is the dollar doing, what is the yen doing, what's the euro doing versus the British pound. I can see all of that within one window. And you can see the dollar is pretty much not moving. The euro has not been moving. The Swiss franc has not been moving. The British pound has been moving up, okay? But it's also going in the same direction as the dollar. So you're not going to get a nice strong movement there because they're pretty much both moving in the same direction, okay? You don't get real strong movements when you have two currencies that are moving in the same direction. Does everybody understand that? Now the scanners are the first thing that I look at because it gives me an overview of everything. For example, right now, gold 3-minute. You're oversold on the ADX. What does it tell me? It tells me that the market is going to retrace on the 3-minute chart. Okay? Now let me switch the windows. And let me show you the chart version. Okay, does everybody see my charts now? Let's see what congestion looks like on the chart. Okay, here on gold, do you see this line of white congestion dots? And then you see this line of plus marks. That's congestion. That's how we recognize it on the chart. So you see I have this row of congestion dots, and we have a row of ATRs, which are the plus signs. Anytime we see this, we're expecting it to go up to the congestion dot, back down to the ATR. It is at those times that we read the volume to see whether it's going to go up or whether it's going to come down. Right now, my anticipation would be that it's going to come back to this ATR, and I would need to read the volume again at the ATR. Any questions on that one? Now, are we trending on this time frame? No, we are not. Even the ADX, you see it's all dark colors, tells you this is not a trending market right now. Okay? Now, the indicator here is what we call the directional volume indicator. That is measuring not only the volume, but also the price action. Okay? So even without looking at the price bars, in fact, pretty much I could just put that up there and I could tell you price made a high, price made an inside bar, price made a low, then it made a high followed by a high that gave you divergence, then it made what we call an outside bar, both a high and a low, but the buyers controlled that. Then the next bar was an inside bar, and the current bar is also an inside bar. Why? Because this tells me that price made a high when compared to the previous bar. Gray tells me it's an inside bar, meaning it did not take out the high or the low. Red tells me that it made a low when compared to the previous bar. And then the magenta tells me that we have an outside bar, meaning it exceeded both the high and the low of the previous bar. Everybody understand that now? Now, all of the buyers are plotted above zero. All of the sellers are plotted below zero. This little hash mark tells me where did it end, okay? Now, I only rely on this hash mark when I am live on the market, okay? Because it has to be reading the volume as the volume is building. So over here, if I'm looking at the daily, I'm only reading the height of the volume bars. Does everybody understand that? I'm not reading the hash mark, which is why all of these little hash marks are above zero. Does everybody understand that? But the closer we get down, does nobody see my arrow? It's an arrow this morning, Dave. I'm not using the lines. Okay. So here you can see that you had divergence, and you can see these are below zero, and then it switched to being controlled by the buyers. This is on a 3-minute. You're live. You know to rely on this volume in this delta. Okay? Now, what does it mean when you get a gray price bar like these? Okay? That tells you that you are close enough to the ATR to take a trade. Okay? Because that's the big question. You know, you want to take a trade on the pullback, right? But what's close enough? Is it 50 cents? Is it $1? Is it $2? What depends on the time frame, right? We coded in an algorithm that says if it's close enough, regardless of the time frame, if it's close enough, turn the price bar gray, okay? So if you see a gray price bar, you know I'm close enough to the ATR to take a pullback trade. Does everybody understand that now? When do you expect a pullback trade? Anytime you get a magenta peak. The magenta peak, which is this magenta dot here, it looks like a mountaintop, okay? It's not flat, but it looks like a mountaintop. Then you know, okay, this is when I expect to have the pullback. So not only do we know to take a trade at the pullback, we know when to anticipate that pullback. And again, if you come over here and you look at the scanner, do you see how you're getting long divergence right now on the NASDAQ? So if I click on this and then we go over to the 3-minute NASDAQ, there's definitely divergence there. It's building intra-bar, okay? That means that we need to wait until this ends before we can say, okay, the divergence is solid. We can now anticipate a magenta peak here. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so let's put that off to the side again. Now, what does this magenta bar mean? That tells me it's a wide bar. Wide bars typically retrace about 80% of the time. So anytime you see a wide bar, you can expect a retracement. Do I trade that on a 3-minute chart? No, I do not. Okay? If I were to get it on a higher time frame, I would go down in time to make sure, yes, the retracement is starting, and then I would take the trade from there. Does everybody understand that? Now, in addition to that, we've also taking an added divergence into the ADX. So in this case, you see that you're making lows, you make a new low, but you did not make a higher low in the ADX. The ADX is a non-directional indicator. You should have made a higher low here when price made a lower low. Because it did not, you would expect a retracement. Do I trade that? No, I do not. I trade the magenta peak portion. You use the Buddha trade, Chris. Any questions on that? Now, in addition to all of that, I've also noticed that there's a correlation between gold and silver in the U.S. dollar. A lot of people have talked about this correlation before, okay? The meter right here in the center of the screen is simply tracking the dollar index, silver, and gold, as well as crude. What do you see this morning? This is unusual because you're seeing none of them are really moving. Okay, again, it goes back to congestion, okay? Does everybody understand that? If you had any doubts as to what was happening today, okay, the market is trying to tell you that they're expecting something major to happen because you're seeing a lot of congestion. Okay? Well, there's two things that are going to happen this week that's probably going to determine the market actions. One is the Fed announcement, whether the Feds do what they anticipate them to do. And the other one is actually whether Scotland decides to become separate from the UK. And that vote is being held tomorrow. And those are the two major things that will develop the markets this week. Now, let's start on gold this morning. And here we go. So the major thing on gold this morning may be that we get another magenta peak, which will make price go up to this ATR. In that case, I would have this ATR value, which is 1263.8, I would have it marked over here on either the 3 or the 12-minute chart. We also have an ATR that is at 1248.6. Again, I would have that on either the 12 or the 3-minute. In addition to that, I would have 1243.3 as well as, can't quite get it, 1231.6. That's going to give you all of the support and resistance for the day from the higher time frames. Higher time frames being the 180, the 720, and the 1440. Does everybody understand that? And you'll see that price just bounces off of them. All right, and I think the deciding factor today is going to be between the 180 and the 45-minute on gold. I'm actually expecting it to go up. I'll look at that in a minute, Keith. If you're tracking the weekly, please note that you've got a congestion dot on the weekly on gold. Okay? All right, let's go and look at crude. Okay, would you look at the magenta peak on the crude 180? Would you consider that pretty flat? No, actually I wouldn't. Yeah, if you're doing the 1440, Keith, you would be doing a 90-minute, and let me pull up a 90-minute. That's the only one, actually. That's right. Settings would be 90-minute. You're talking about here, Keith. You could have taken either one of those. Yeah. That would have been the Buddha trade, which was between the 90 and the 1440. And you're right, it's an excellent example. And right now is an excellent example. You made a wide bar down, and it's already retraced 50%. So, yeah. Yeah, and that's one that, you know, you could have taken in the binaries, or you could have taken it in the spreads, either one. You would have lowered your risk. Okay. On crude, looking at the 1440, I would have the value of 94.60 on either the 3 or the 12. Also coincides to a congestion dot at 94.76. And I would have this ATR at 92.78 on either the 12 or the 3-minute chart. Okay? Yeah, that's what you would be anticipating, is a retracement back to this ATR, which should support price, okay? But, and this is the key to it, you're at an ATR here, at a congestion dot here. You've got, what, maybe 50 cents between it? So even if you pop down here and hit this ATR, okay, you still have overhead resistance. You can see that on the zones here because you're getting a lot of zones up here, okay? Yeah, I don't know, Chris. We do have a 8:30 report this morning, Chris. So, all right. Now, so, I mean, it would not surprise me if this goes down and hits this ATR. But again, be aware that you do have a congestion dot right up above you here. You have an ATR here. What does that really mean? What does it mean when I say be aware of this? It means don't try to trend trade it, okay? That's what it means. Don't try to trend trade this. Yeah, but even then, Keith, you could have a Buddha here, okay? But right now you're at 32, your ATR is at 78, okay? That's 50 ticks. Now, you might, oh, well, that's a lot of money. You won't get the whole 50, guys. Okay? All right. Let's go look at the NASDAQ. All right, NASDAQ, you're bouncing off of the congestion dot. All right, you have a wide bar here that's probably going to retrace to just about the level of that congestion dot. Okay, so it's probably going to retrace to about 40.36. You have a congestion dot above you on the 180. Okay, you have a congestion dot below you on the 45-minute. Is this probably the best time to take a trade? I would say no. If I did, I'd probably go to the short side because at least it would come down to 40.33. It's got to break this one to do that, but that would be your lowest risk on the 180. Does everybody understand that? Any questions on that? Why did I choose the 180? Because the 180 is a higher time frame, okay? You also have a magenta bar here that will probably push price down. You have a congestion dot that's probably going to push price down, okay? That's why. I'm not relying on the smaller time frames in this case. Any questions on that? Now, using the binaries, we could go out all day long, or we could use the spreads. Either one's going to cap our risk, okay, because we just want to be in a trade today. Any questions on that? All right, what about the Dow? The Dow, you have bounced off of the ATR that is on the 1440. You do have a congestion dot right up above you at 17,121. You have this magenta bar, which means that is probably going to retrace back to 16,990. You have an ATR below you at about 16,982, okay? I would think that this is going to retrace back to the ATR today. And that's on the 180. Everybody understand that? I want to see what the building permits was. Give me just a minute. That's tomorrow. Today, thank you. Okay, the CPI came out at -0.2, and the core CPI came in at 0. They were expecting 0.2 on the core. They were expecting 0.1 on the CPI month over month, so it actually came in worse than they anticipated. So, all right. Let's go to the S&P 500 now. All right, again, you're bouncing off of this ATR. You're at an ATR here. Okay, so just looking at the 720, I would be anticipating at least a 50% retracement to here, which is at 1983. We do not have a magenta peak here yet. And this bar ends at 9 o'clock this morning. I would want to come back and analyze the volume on that one. You've got an ATR up above you here. No potential for a magenta peak here. More than likely, the 180 today is the one that I would be watching over all of the others. Does everybody understand that? Yes or no? Would I be looking for divergence on the 180 new high? Yeah, I would. But now remember too, Charles, it's not overbought. Okay? I like them better when they're overbought or oversold, which means they're above the 70 line. The 180, Chris. It is much better when you get the ones that are above 70, and I was scanning to see if I could find any, but I don't see any this morning. Other than, you know, like little 3 minutes. But you're not getting oversold or overbought values right now on any of these higher time frames to go with these magenta peaks. And if you remember last week we did one on crude. Do y'all remember that one? And I pointed out the difference is the ADX is overbought and oversold, or oversold. I can't remember which one it was. I think the video of that one is, yeah, a big move followed it, but it was because the ADX was either overbought or oversold at the same time that you were getting volume divergence, and it was 2 different time frames that had that setup on it. I think it was the 45 and the 180. Yeah, there is a video on how to use the clipper. It is online. Keith, which platform are you using the clipper on? If you go to the blog, and you do have to go to the blog, over on the left-hand side, I've got NinjaTrader training videos, Multicharts, and TradeStation. Each one walks through how to use those. And I think the frequently asked questions do too. All right, let's go down to the DAX, which is absolutely my favorite market. All right, on the DAX, you have ATR that may support price here at 95.73. You also have an ATR here at 97.57. I expect price to actually come up to this ATR, and when it does, I would expect to see divergence and it come back down. That's what I would anticipate just off of those two time frames. You do have an ATR here on the 180. It's at 96.98, and that will offer resistance, or it should offer resistance, I'll put it that way. And I would anticipate this going down, okay? To go down, you're going to have to break this ATR on the 45-minute chart. Everybody understand that? So basically, my overview of the day, the way I feel, I think gold is probably going to end up going up. I think the DAX is going down, and I think the Dow is going down. If the Dow and DAX are going down, then typically the NASDAQ and the ES follow. They typically all move together. Will that happen before the Fed announcement? I don't know. It might happen at the Fed announcement, but I've already got the trades in on spreads, so if it happens, it happens. Any questions on that, guys? And that's not trading the 3-minute charts. It's actually trading the higher time frames. You know, you got a 180 right at an ATR. That's a 3-hour chart. So I'm not expecting it on the 3-minute chart. Okay? Yeah, on gold, I believe it would at least go up to 1243, okay, based off of this magenta peak and a potential for this one to come in. Do y'all see that? I'm not trading these smaller time frames today. If professionals are aligning themselves for a move off of the Fed announcement, I don't think they're going to do it on a 3-minute chart. Do y'all understand that now? And I've capped my risk because I went in the spread. So I don't have to stress over it. And it has until 4 o'clock this afternoon, except for gold. Gold does 1:30. Now, one of the mistakes that I see, some traders make is they want to trade the 180, but then they're looking at the 3-minute and they get scared, basically. I don't do that. If I'm trading the 180, I'm trading the 180. How many 3-minute bars do you have in a 180? That's stressful. 60. Okay, 60. And I know I've got at least two 180-minute bars. So that's 120 bars. Yeah, that's a lot of pain. I don't like pain that much. If I'm trading the 180, I might glance at the 45-minute, but the other two, the 12 and the 3, I'm not even going to pay attention to. Do y'all understand that now? Not unless you just want to have a heart attack for some reason. And that could be. There's just too many bars to watch on that. You know, if I'm trading the 180, I can go on and do other things because this would just be considered noise. It's just, it's like a busy little bee. I don't need to watch it. Okay, any questions today, guys? Charles, binaries and spreads give you the ability to really focus on charts and focus on the price bars and reading the indicators instead of worrying about a P&L chart. It really does. It's a safer environment for traders. And I've wrote a lot of articles on that. It's amazing, just because you feel safer. Anybody that's traded futures and done it through a market report, you don't feel any safety at all because that price can move against you really quick, and if it does, they can jump your stops. All kinds of things can happen to you on the live edge. Binaries, you don't have that issue. Yeah, it really is amazing. It's the calmest trading I've ever done in my life. It truly is. There's no nail biting and panic attacks, nothing. It's just really calm trading. I've gotten used to it, actually. It's dangerous. It's the most amazing trading you'll ever do. That's for sure. You can see now you're getting a lot of potentials here, okay, because you're in a lot of congestion areas. When I'm seeing these potential entries with the congestion, I already know that we have a lot of congestion areas, and I also know just look for the ones on like the 180 and above. That's where you need to be today, not on these lower time frames, because you're going to have a lot of bouncing around today. All right, any questions? I will post this video. I've got to render the video and then I'll post it for everyone to watch. Okay? Any questions today, guys? All right, I'm going to sign off for today. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I will post today's video up on the blog so that you can review it. I did go through the scanner or radar screen, whichever one you're using, so you can go back and review it and understand everything just a little bit better. Okay? Thank you, Chris. Everybody have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place.